on this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.
Life.
Let's talk about the basis of marriage. One, there's a lot of cultural differences. There's a lot of religious differences.
Marriage.
But I think we can judge it. We can derive it down to the fact that not everyone has the same viewpoint of what marriage is or what constitutes a marriage, let alone a good one. And I can use my wife in that example. For her, love, like just the feeling of love, is a marriage. That is something. You are in a marriage until that love is gone, and then you just detach from it. For me, it was marriage is a commitment. It's like a contract you make with your spouse and God to both protect and honor continuously, regardless how much you love or hate somebody. And that, for us in that particular situation, it didn't mesh well. It did really well for a while, but as soon as things started getting difficult in life, like you said, you grow apart. So I don't fault her for that. You know, if anything, this happening in the way it's happening is teaching me how to be a more well-rounded person, let alone an adult. So I think that's the base.
What if I told you love is not a feeling?
What if I told you people think love is a feeling?
What if I told you that's technically not true?
And it's
an action.
But isn't anything?
What if I told you I love you?
When you argue,
I would say
I'll tell you go to Jared's.
Like, that's not a big deal.
Honestly, when it comes to people's interpretations of things, it's very personal. Like, love is a difficult concept for people to even understand, let alone obtain from another human being. So it's hard to. It's not like, like Chris and I meet him for the first time, like, what's your take on Suicide Squad? Okay, now I can base the rest of your shit on that. I can't just walk up to a woman and be like, define what love is, and how do we acquire this? And you're like, that's not going to work out. That's going to be very awkward. And if it's not awkward, please call me, because that's the kind of woman I want.
555 Fire Guy Joe. 555 Fire Guy Joe.
But fundamentally,
do smoke signals. I'll come up.
Here's the thing that I realized, because no relationship is perfect, right? It's just
definitely not.
It's not in the cards. The reality is, like, my wife, we're on two different spectrums of culture. We're on two different spectrums of like how we accept things emotionally.
Oh, don't get me started. If you're different heights.
Oh, she's mad short. She's like barely 4'11".
I was saying, like, there's some positions you just can't do safely.
No, you can't. You just get a
Step stool.
Get the rubber grips on it.
So my point is this: like, it's, if you look at love as an emotion, you're halfway there. The reality is, like, the true definition of love is by what you do, how you respond to things. And there are times where you have to be full of grace to truly love someone. It's no different than it is different than how you love your kids, because your kids are going to do things eventually that you're like, what the hell are you doing? Right? But it doesn't.
Glue doesn't go there.
loving
Why are
them.
you doing that? You're going to suffocate. Yeah, I know. We've all been there.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah. So there is a difference of like, it's not about how you feel. And I'm okay with the fact that my wife doesn't like me 3 out of 7 days a week. Right?
Wow, just 3? That's a good ratio, man. High five.
Yeah, I mean, we're older. We're just kind of like, it's okay. It's Tuesday. So, but it's more of the looking at it not as a feeling, but as the actions you do, right? Yeah. So, case in point, a few months back, we got into this fight on a Friday or something. It had to be Thursday, because I went to work Friday, didn't talk. And Saturday morning, I did what I was normally doing. I got up that morning, I made her coffee, and I made her breakfast, and I brought it to her in bed.
Aww.
And she puts on Facebook, no, hear me out.
Cute.
She puts on Facebook, is this love, or is he setting me up?
I mean,
I know, I get that.
Can it be both?
I get that.
But my point is, like, for me, like, I never saw that post on Facebook because I'm not on Facebook, but my brother told me about it. And his wife was like, that's the type of love I want, right? Where you can disagree, but it doesn't change who you are. You're okay to be mad. You're okay to be upset. It's okay to not like my wife, and it's okay for her to not like me for a couple days a week. But after that, is that my ride or die partner? And that's how you have to look. That's how I look at it. That's what makes it healthy, and it helps me to get through the tough times in marriage. Marriage is hard. I've told Chris this a lot of times. Like, look, dude, like, you can't prescribe these things like your wife. It's like, it's not the way it works. Yeah. Because I'm sure you're doing shit she doesn't like either. So, and that's how I look at it.
See, so I like how you say you can't prescribe those kind of things, because on a real personal level, like that was the Achilles heel to my relationship. It was always, what can you do for me? Why aren't you doing enough for this? This is what you have to do. And I was eventually drowned out as just a personality. I wasn't so much a partner or a love interest, more so just the guy who paid for everything, the guy who worked for everything. It was like, woe is me, the housewife, having to be stuck here with the kids, and you had did this to me. The least you could do is work your ass off to make it up for the fact you did this to me. That kind of thing. And there's a merit to that kind of thinking in small dosage, but to make that your reality is toxic. You lose track of where you guys started, and all you're at is where you're going, and you're just stuck in that vicious cycle. And,
shit, that's my first marriage, right? You like, we literally decided that the things that we decided were important to us, right? And my kids, like, I have 2 sons that have to live through that. And that is I believe that's the part where it's like, look, if I'm being super honest, and, I will say this to anybody, fix your crap now in this relationship, because if you're not careful, it's going to be your next relationship, because you already have a type.
Yeah.
For guys, the person that we marry, that is by definition our type. Like, and the unfortunate part is, if you forget the physical attributes, everything about that person is the last person you're with. So you're better off fixing those, or addressing those things, not fixing them, but addressing, facing those things, living with those things, and dealing with those things now, because you're going to deal with it in your next relationship. Right, Chris?
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't say it in a dismissive type of way. It's like, my wife is literally a lot of the personality of my ex-wife. So I married my type again. It's hard, it's challenging, and it hurts. Like, this is one thing women don't know about guys. If we get to a point where we're saying, even the asshole that we talked about before, if we get to a point where we say, I want to marry you, we've already committed. We're completely vulnerable. And the worst person to ever, like, not have on your side is somebody that knows everything about you. And when we lose that, we don't course correct. We spiral out of control. And it's the most gut-wrenching experience that we can have in our life, right? I'm okay, and I'm honest about the fact that I'm not a good single guy. I'm like, I love my wife. I love being married, because that makes me a better person. Not that it completes me, it makes me a better person. So the way we react to that is completely, like, not just marriage, but just saying I love you and really meaning it to a woman. It throws us off. My sons are young, and they, I've had a couple sons to go through, like, breakups, and like, yo, don't do that, yo. Like, you gotta stay true to you, because if you respond to that emotion, you don't become the person you want to be. You're a bad person. Yeah. You can't swim upstream of that. Marriage is not, it's not easy, but it's not hard either.
No, and I mean, love, like you were talking about, marriage and love, I think, and being very similar in the sense that for guys, that is kind of that barrier where once we've crossed that threshold, like, it's pretty much all or nothing for us. And it's really hard to, I think, go through that, feel like you can do that again, right? Like, I mean, when I went through my divorce and separation, like, I was convinced that was it for me. I was like, well, I'll just be single for the rest of my life, because I'm not dealing with that again. And I realized at one point that was kind of a
That's not true.
right, and kind of a silly way to
That
look
sounds
at
like
it.
a reaction. That's a reaction to
Yeah,
trauma.
it was very much. But I think, like in my first marriage, I was under the impression, the false impression, that love was automatic. Like love once defined and established, maintained without any effort, without any work. That.
Yeah, that's not true.
Exactly. I mean, we had gotten to a point, especially right after the birth of our daughter, that that became everything and essentially the only thing for both of us. And we drifted apart and stopped communicating altogether unless it was about something to do with our kid. And I mean, that's literally where we are now. It was essentially a precursor.
I once had this woman move into. I was living in the ghetto, the one I told you about, where the fence line, and the duplex next to us had an open residency, and it was a mom and her 4 kids, and she was a young mom, just barely, not even 30 yet, and recently divorced, and she was pretty much hiding from her ex, and. Mm-hmm. We then right in front of her, right as soon as you leave her doorway, there's our little house, 450 square foot house, and you got myself and my wife, first time parents with our baby girl. And one day she just kind of walks over to us and she's like, I just want to let you guys know, I see what you're doing here. I'm so proud of you. You're on your track. You're on a really good start. But what I need you to know, what I need you to think about, is that she told this to my wife, you married him, not the baby. Make time for him. And it's not till now, after all this, 8 years later, that I'm actually fully understanding what that meant. And it's the small things. It's kind of what you just said. You get married to each other. You two are the center of each other's worlds. When you start making other goals, when you say make the other things the center of your world, you naturally push out that other aspect, that other.
Because you
not
think
to get
you
too
don't have room for it.
Well, you just lose track of it.
It's
you
okay
lose track of it.
Dude, Joe, it's okay to be emotional, right?
Yeah.
So one of my sons asked me, as my daughter was going to college, he said, "Hey, Pop, what is it going to be like for my sister to leave the house?" I said, "Babe, understand this. I've never focused my life around my children because one day you're going to leave, right? And I have to be okay with the fact that you guys are going to leave me one day, and the person I have to be with is his stepmom. That's where my life is focused around. I've changed careers around that. I have made less money around that, because what scares me the most is losing my family, right? My kids one day, they're all 18 now, right? I knew that was inevitable. Because I got divorced, I realized nothing is kind of constant except for the fact that, it's going to be
everything's unconstant.
Yeah. So what that lady said to you is not wrong. But what I will also say to you is that there is a level that I wish more guys got this, right? It's the principle of grace. And I mean that with 100%. I don't expect my wife to be perfect. I expect her to understand my flaws and my weaknesses, and to be I'm with her because she is the opposite of my weaknesses and my flaws. But I also have to be understanding of her and what she's good at and what she's not good at. And that's hard to get to.
To hear the rest, tune into this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.